And welcome to our one meeting for this November. In November and December, we only have one meeting because the fourth Tuesdays of every month is generally the month or the week that the holiday is. So this month we're only having one tonight, and then next month we're going to be having our holiday party. So just stay tuned. I'm going to be getting that information to Lee probably tomorrow for the signups for the holiday party. So tonight, Dave is going to be talking about photographing the Milky Way. We do have a field trip that Christine told us about on December 4th from 5 to 8. The Antelope Valley Indian Museum is having an event called Holidays on the Homestead, and they are going to have like a cowboy by the campfire playing music, and they're going to have the grounds all lit up in Christmas lights, and you'll be able to wander around on the paths and around the houses and things. So I think it might be a really fun little opportunity to take pictures of the Indian Museum in a different way than we normally do, because we normally go in the middle of the day and everything is all bright, but this will be a different way of photographing it. So I'm excited about the opportunity. There is admission is $10, and it includes a bowl of chili and cornbread and either hot chocolate or cider. So and that you pay when you get there. I don't think that they're taking any pre-reservations or anything like that. But the sign-up sheet is on the website. So if you're a member, go there, sign in on the website, and then sign up for the field trip, so we'll know to look for you. Then on Tuesday, December 14th, which is 4 weeks away, we're having our holiday party. The senior center still is closed for us to be there. They're still working on the flooring, but we are going to go ahead and just do it at my church because they're more than happy to host us. And so we're going to have a potluck dinner, and I'll have a sign up list for items for people to sign up for. And please also indicate that you're coming and how many people that you're bringing, so that I can know how many tables to set up. And make sure we have enough of everything for everyone. We're going to be having a white elephant gift exchange. That's been fun the past couple of years that we've done it. And so I thought that would be fun to do again. Don't spend any more than $10, or just grab something interesting from around your house. It's more about the humor of the gift rather than its intrinsic value. And we are going to need volunteers to help decorate. So if you're interested in helping decorate, also indicate that when you sign up, and I will be in contact with you about that. And where it's being held is at Quartz Hill Community Church, and that's the corner of Avenue K and 51st Street West. We've had a couple of other things there, so and it works pretty well. So we will be doing that. That's the main items that I have to talk about. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dave, and he is going to speak to us about photographing the Milky Way. Just make sure to mute yourselves, okay?
I think everybody but me and you are muted, it appears. From what I see, everybody else is muted. You might gather that Chris and I like the Milky Way because if you look at our backgrounds, you see they are Milky Ways on both of us. I've got to share my screen to switch to the slideshow, so it takes a minute. So you'll just have to bear with me for a second while we switch. So I'm going to click to share screen and find the right window, and then share it and start the slideshow. It's photographing the Milky Way. So that is one of our favorite things to do, is photographing the Milky Way. It's relatively easy once you know the tricks to actually photograph it. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. So the agenda is, what is the Milky Way and where do you find it? Talk a little bit about gear, camera settings, two of the most important things in shooting the Milky Way, and those happen to be focusing and composing, and some examples of shooting the Milky Way, and then a little bit about post-processing. The Milky Way is the galaxy that is home to the Earth and the solar system. So we're part of the Milky Way. The Milky Way is a spiral galaxy, and the sun is on, and our solar system is on one of the outer arms. So we're not anywhere, we're not in the center. So the Milky Way is kind of a thin disk is the way to think of it. And photographically, the most interesting part of the Milky Way is what's called the galactic center, which has the big mass of stars. And when you see a picture of a Milky Way, usually the galactic center is included. And the Milky Way is visible every night, but the galactic center is only visible from March through November. So because we're in the Milky Way, if you go out on any night, you can see part of it. You may be looking out instead of toward the center, you may be looking out. So right now, the galactic center is usually below the horizon in the northern hemisphere. But you can see part of the Milky Way. It's just very faint toward the outer edges. Where to find the Milky Way? So how do you find the Milky Way? Well, the galactic center is always in the south. So at least in the northern hemisphere, it's going to be somewhere toward the south. It may be southeast, it may be southwest, but it was in the southern part of the sky. And you can use programs such as the photographer's ephemeris to see where the galactic center will be at a specific time. And I'll show an example of that. There's also an app for a phone called Photo Pills that can be used to plan and visualize the Milky Way. The Photo Pills has a function on it called Night AR, and it will show you the Milky Way so you can line up whatever you want to shoot it against the Photo Pills image, and you can see where the Milky Way would be at the time you plan on shooting. I've got to switch stop sharing my screen and switch over to the photographer's ephemeris. So I'm going to do that. And it takes a minute to find the program. All right, this is the photographer's ephemeris. And I'll see if I can make it full screen here so you can see the whole thing. It's set on Red Rock Canyon on October 15th, 2017 at 7:45 p.m. And I set that because I've got a picture that was taken at exactly that time at Red Rock Canyon. So the lines on this is the Milky Way and the direction toward the galactic center. And you can see it along the bottom of the photographer's ephemeris. Sunset was on that day was 6:16. The civil twilight ended at 6:41. Nautical twilight ended at 7:11. Astro twilight ended at 7:40. So astro twilight means the sun is more than 16 degrees below the horizon, and it's dark enough to be able to see the Milky Way. And actually you can see it maybe and photograph it maybe even 15 minutes before that time. That particular day, the galactic center is going to set at 9:29 p.m. and 234 degrees. So that's what this solid, bigger gray line is. Sometimes I think you have to set one of the options in the photographer's ephemeris to be able to see that the Milky Way. And like, there's also a function in there called sphere. I'm going to switch over to that. And it actually shows a sphere of the Milky Way. I'll make it just a small bit smaller. So this is the galactic center, and you can see the Milky Way is almost directly overhead on that day. And you can see where the Milky Way is, left to right, and where the sun set over here. Sun is below the horizon, the moon is below the horizon, so there's no moon and there's no sun that day. And this is the terrain map with that. But there you can also switch to just the map view. And this is set, I've put the pointer at the Ricardo campground, which is the only place you can get to in Red Rock Canyon at night, other than some of these other roads like this one. This little pull off of a 14 is supposedly day use only, and the rest of the park is supposed to be day use only. You can drive up some of these dirt roads after dark. But if you're trying to use the visitor center or anything around the campground, you have to reserve a campground to be able to use it. I'll switch back to the regular program. Seeing the Milky Way. The Milky Way is faint. So that means here in Lancaster, and probably in Roseman too, you cannot actually see it at night. There's too much light pollution. If you're going to photograph the Milky Way, it's best on a night with no moon. Chris and I just tried to photograph the Milky Way at Bryce with a quarter moon, and it completely washed out the Milky Way. And light pollution is a real problem with LA to the south of us, and Lancaster, Palmdale, and even Mojave have a lot of light. The other factor you need is a clear sky. If the sky is totally cloudy, you obviously can't see the Milky Way. Some locations near us to consider that are far enough away from most light sources to be able to see the Milky Way. Red Rock Canyon is right on the edge. And unfortunately, since the Milky Way's galactic center is to the south, you're looking toward Palmdale, Lancaster, and LA. So you really, the best with Red Rock Canyon, you have to find one of those cliffs to be behind to block out the low horizon, because it will be bright. The other area is the Trona Pinnacles, which is not too far away. That's pretty dark, although you can get a little bit to the south. It's not too bad. Alabama Hills is certainly dark and has the eastern Sierra to block a lot of the light from the south. So that works. The bristlecone forests are excellent because they're up above 10,000 feet. So you're getting above most of the air and the pollution. So that it works out really great. It just takes a long time to get up there. Mono Lake is also a dark site, and so are parts of Death Valley. So those are some local areas that are dark. In the springtime, the galactic center is visible early in the morning. That means just before sunrise. So if you really want to see it, and it arcs over, and so it's a good time to try to get a picture of the full arc of the Milky Way is in the springtime. But that means you're going to be shooting like an hour to 2 hours before sunrise. In June, the Milky Way is visible around midnight. Late summer to fall, it's visible as soon as it's dark enough. So you can start shooting right away as soon as you can see it. That October setup I had for on the photographer's ephemeris, the Milky Way is visible as soon as it was dark there. And the other thing you need to do is look for the weather to try to figure out whether it's going to be cloudy or not. There are two sources of good weather information. Clear Dark Skies is a site that shows cloud cover and other factors for astronomy. And it's only good about 48 hours in advance. And I'd say they are a little bit optimistic about the cloud cover. You go onto that site and then you have to go to the list of the spots in California or Nevada or Utah or wherever you want to go. They have actually covers the whole US. But you can pick one of the sites that's close to where you're going. Up near the Bristlecone Pines, there's a place called Grandview Campground where a lot of astronomers go. And it's essentially, if you use that, you can use that one for the Bristlecone Pines. The US Weather Service and forecast.weather.gov has part of that forecast is an hour by hour cloud cover forecast. And they also have a wind speed forecast. If you're trying to shoot in sand dunes, you really want to know what the wind speed is likely to be like. It's not much fun to be shooting in the gale in the sand dune. And the government forecast is good for 7 days in advance, although they do tend to change it a lot as it gets closer and closer. But it's worth checking on what your cloud forecast is going to look like, because it doesn't do much good to plan a trip way far away and then have it ruined because there's so many clouds. So gear. You need a camera that can work with high ISOs, at least 6400. So all the cameras that have been issued in the last, say, 5 years definitely will work. And you also need a fast lens, at least f4 and better if it's a 2.8. You also need it's better to have a wide lens, 24 millimeter or wider on a full frame camera. You need a sturdy tripod because you're going to be shooting longer exposures. And it's good to have a remote release so you're not jiggling the camera from pushing the shutter button. Settings. Exposure time. You need it long enough to capture faint objects, but not long enough to cause star trailing. So you want to get points of stars rather than a star trail. You can use the rule of 500, which is 500 divided by the focal length. So for instance, with a 24 millimeter, that'd be about 20 seconds if you're using the rule of 500, or 30 seconds for using the rule of 600. I find it too long for high megapixel cameras. So I try to limit my exposures to about 10 or 15 seconds. So actually somewhere between 10 and 30 seconds will work with most cameras. And the aperture, you have to shoot wide open if it's an f4 or a 2.8 lens. Anything slower than f4 will be difficult to avoid star trailing because your exposure times will be so long. A faster lens can work with, if you've got a 1.4 or 1.8 lens, they will also work, or anything faster than 2.8. Fast lenses. The advantage of a really fast lens is less time or lower ISO. So you can get by with using 5 seconds, for instance, on a Milky Way shot if you have a 1.4 lens, because a 1.4 lens is 2 stops faster than a 2.8. So that means for the same exposure, you can use it, and the same ISO, you can use a quarter of the exposure time compared to 2.8. So if you have to use 20 seconds on a f2.8, you can use 5 seconds on a 1.4 and get exactly the same exposure. F1.8 lens is 1 1/3 stops faster than 2.8. And the downsides for using fast lenses, especially with astrophotography, is you get aberrations and vignetting. Vignetting is the darkening of the corners. This is an example of lens aberration. I hope you can see that. But the stars turn out to be like little angels. And you can see all these angels. This is shot with a 1.4 24 millimeter lens. This is a 100% section of the photo of the image. So can you see, I hope you can see those little angels, and the brightest stars turn into angels. And this is in the far corner, upper right corner. That's at 1.4. To go to 2, we've still got the same stars here, and the angels are getting smaller, and we don't see so many angels out in here. So this is at 2. So this is twice the exposure, or half the ISO as the previous one. And then we go to 2.8, all the angels are pretty well gone. So we get rid of the coma by going to 2.8, but now we've had to go to 20 seconds. So we're starting to get a little elongation of the stars. So we're starting to get a little bit of star trailing. And because this is 100% enlargement, it's more noticeable than it would be if you had a regular enlargement. But that's one of the downsides of really fast lenses. So if you're considering buying one for astrophotography, I would suggest you rent one, try it out, and make sure it doesn't have too much coma. The other thing about lenses, manual focuses are fine because you're going to wind up manually focusing anyway. IRIX makes a 15 millimeter 2.4 lens that costs less than $1,000. It's something like $500 or $600. It has about 3 stops of vignetting in the corners, and it also is subject to a little bit of coma at 2.4. We've used the Nikon 24-70 lenses at 2.8, and they don't seem to have any problem with coma, at least not at 2.8. The other variable we've got is ISO, and use the histogram to judge exposure. But you find at night, when you take a picture at night, your eyes are used to the dark, and you look at the image on the back of your camera, and it seems incredibly bright. You think you've overexposed it. You have to look at the histogram, because what you probably got is it's all in the dark end of it. With the Milky Way shots, you're not going to have much to the right, but you want to try to get it off the left edge just a little bit. Remember, the noise is always in the dark areas. So you're never going to get rid of when you're shooting at these ISOs, you're never going to get rid of the noise in the dark areas. Mainly it's the sky you're worried about. The new cameras can go ISOs up to 12,800 and be usable. You can actually take a usable image at that ISO. And it's hard to go lower than 6,400 and capture the Milky Way, because if you do, it'll be so dark that you'll wind up in post-processing, you'll wind up increasing it, effectively increasing the ISO anyway, because you'll have to raise the exposure. This is a cut of a picture that I raised the exposure and the shadows in the dark areas to show all the noise. This picture is just full of noise. I don't know if you can see it on the screen or not, but it's the same one I've got on my background, but it's just a corner cut out of it, and it shows how much noise there is in the shadows. This was probably shot at 6,400. But it's extremely noisy. And so there's got to be a way to get around the noise and the shadows. And Topaz AI is not the way to do it. The way to take care of the noise and the shadows is to take a composite. You can take it, especially if you're shooting in the fall when it's dark, or when you can shoot right after it's dark, you can take a shot during twilight and then composite with the night shot. If you're not shooting right that, or if you're shooting just before sunrise, you can also use that technique. The other technique is to use a light source to light the scene. You can use light panels or a flashlight. And sometimes if the moon is not near the galactic center and you've got less than a full moon, you can also use the moon to light the foreground. So that is a couple of ways of getting it. Otherwise, if you try to bring out the shadows to get the detail, you'll wind up just full of noise. The two most important items are composition and focusing. The first time you shoot the Milky Way, maybe it's pretty exciting, but it really doesn't make a compelling image unless you have a good foreground object to go with it. So the hard part is finding a compelling foreground object. So that's where it takes a lot of planning and trips during the daylight to find that. The other thing that's really hard is focusing at night. I found that incredibly difficult. For composition, you need to have an interesting foreground object to try to tell the story and to scout the area in the light. It is difficult to try to do this when it's pitch black dark. Because when you're shooting the Milky Way, you're shooting when it's pitch black. Focusing, that is incredibly difficult. I didn't mention it in here, but you can focus on the infinity, something in the infinity during the daylight hours. Take the focus, turn off autofocus, and hope that it'll stay there by the time you get there. I haven't had a whole lot of luck with that. Autofocus totally does not work in the dark. So what I found that does work is to use live view and magnify as much as possible. You want to get a star somewhere in the magnified view using live view. And the focus must be close to even show stars in live view. If your focus is way off, you won't see any stars at all. You'll start to see twinklies somewhere in the frame when you finally get close enough. You have to try to get a sharp point of light. Sharp as you can get it by focusing, by moving the manual focus. Fuzz balls are not in focus. So if you see a fuzz ball when you're magnifying a star, it is not in focus. Then you have to wind up taking an image and then looking at it and learn that you have to zoom in on that. And unfortunately, the JPEGs that the camera back shows are not high enough resolution to really be able to tell the difference between a really good focused and a non-focused one. So you have to learn as part of this is trial by error. You have to learn the difference between in-focus fuzz balls and out-of-focus fuzz balls, because everything is going to look like a fuzz ball when you magnify it from the back of the camera image. So the best you can do is go to live view, get it as sharp as you can by going past the focus point and then back to get as sharp as possible. Take another image. And I think I've got an example. Now this probably looks like it's pretty much in focus. When you get a small image, like this is a full-size image, it looks like it's good enough. But if you really go into 100%, you see the stars are actually fuzz balls. So it looked like it was good enough back on the back of the camera when I magnified in, but it's not really. It's really not focused that sharp. It's probably shot at 1.4, which makes the focus even more critical. So focus is one of the harder things to do. So I'm going to share some images. So I have to stop this share and switch over to Lightroom. And then I'm going to go full screen on this. this is the galactic center here in the middle. And you won't see that in North America. This shot was taken just below the equator in Africa. And in Africa, the Milky Way is not right on the southern border like it is in North America. So it's different depending on where you are. So we're talking about mostly North America. So this was taken at Red Rock Canyon. And so I've used the hill there to kind of block off some of the light pollution from LA, but you can still see there's some of the orange glow from the city lights. And this was taken on October 17th, 2017 at Red Rock Canyon. So you can, probably the car lights lit this hillside up. So these are the cliffs at Red Rock Canyon. So I've used the cliff to mostly block out the light from the LA. So you can see that the Milky Way is almost vertical in that night. So this was taken at the Throne of Pinnacles with a partial moon coming up. So you get the moon illuminating some of the foreground, but not enough to wash out all the Milky Way. And you still get a little light from the horizon, from LA and the cities down there. These are taken up at the Alabama hills. And we've gone to a lot of sites in the Alabama hills. So this was one of them. This was exactly the same position. We just lit up the foreground rocks a little bit, moved slightly. So this is the same image, same position. And then this is taken with a fisheye in the Alabama hills. So you can see how the Milky Way arcs over. Another one from the Alabama hills. Another one from the Alabama hills. And another, this was probably a multi-row composite to get the entire Milky Way in one frame. It's other than a fisheye lens, the only way to do this is multi-row compositing. And there's the Alabama Arch with the Milky Way and different rocks. And the Alabama Arch. There's only certain times a year you can actually get in a position to get the Milky Way near the Alabama Arch. Then the other one you can go is bristlecone pines. So there's two groves up there. This is the Schulman Grove, which is the first one you come to. And about 10 more miles up the gravel road, it takes you about 45 minutes to get there, is the Patriarch Grove. So here's a couple from the Schulman Grove. And then this one was taken at the Patriarch Grove. So if you're going to go up there all the way to the Patriarch Grove.
It's not showing right. You're getting a line across there of your, you're not getting the full picture, and you're getting because all your pictures were like up here. Not sure what's going on.
I'm going to try a different share since Chris says I'm not getting the whole share.
Maybe just close your thumbnail.
I'll try the other
at the bottom.
I'll try the other share and see if I can get it. I think it's this one. It works.
Still enough to see that these are all glorious pictures.
Oh yeah, totally.
I'm hoping that one shows up. That is up again at the
Still going across.
I can't do anything about it, Chris.
Well, I'm just telling you.
And then Mono Lake. There's some. And another Mono Lake of the Tufas with a few little clouds floating over. And then also Eureka Dunes. This is a multi-row panorama composite up at Eureka Dunes, which is in Death Valley. And then this one is the Racetrack Valley in Death Valley. And I used a panel light that's the grandstand that's lit up. So I used the panel light to light up the grandstand. And then the 20 mule team can be used as a foreground object.
Dave,
Yes.
can you turn off your thumbnail strip at the bottom and just use your arrow key?
I am using the arrow key.
But if you like minimize the thumbnail screen at the very bottom, then I think we can see it better. There.
Is that better?
Can you go back to the 20 mule team thing? Because we couldn't see the wagons at all. There you go.
I was actually
we can
using full screen, but I'll do it this way.
Yeah.
If you type F, will it go full screen for us?
It'll go full screen, but I don't know if you can see it. That's what Kathy was saying, you couldn't see it.
Now I need to go back. Yeah, it
Doesn't catch it all.
Yeah.
I'll go back one more. This is the Racetrack Valley one in Death Valley. And again, it's a multi-row panorama.
Can you explain that a little more for people who might not know what that is?
The Racetrack Valley is in part of Death Valley, but it takes a 26-mile, extremely rough gravel road. It's actually cobbles rather than I wouldn't call it gravel. It's really a cobble road. It's death on your car to go there. You can rent a Jeep in Death Valley. That'd be the way to go. And there's a campground about 2 miles south of the Racetrack Valley that you can camp out. It is a extremely primitive campsite. So this was taken about midnight or 2 a.m. Was taken at 1:56 a.m. on the 30th or on the 19th, the 30th of May.
She wants to know what a multi-row panorama is. That's what the people don't understand.
A multi-row panorama, Chris says I should explain what a multi-row panorama. That means
Yes, that's what I was asking.
you take a series of pictures like you would any other panorama, but to get the full Milky Way height, you have to do more than one row. And then you can use Lightroom to put them back together. So this was probably all taken with a 35mm lens, because you get less distortion than you do with the 24. So you turn it vertical, shoot the row, and then raise it up and go back and shoot another row and maybe 3 rows. Sometimes it takes 3 rows to get it all with about 50% overlap. It seems to put the stars together without any problem. And it's mainly getting the distortion it's out of the foreground and the whole thing.
Yes, that's what I wanted to have explained.
So there was the 20 mil team. This was is also the sand dunes, the Ibex sand dunes in Death Valley. They're in the southern end of Death Valley. And that looks like that's all we've got. While I'm here, we're going to talk about, the next one is artifacts of the night sky. We'll have to get this one up. But I'll go back to the slide and we'll talk about artifacts.
Great photos.
Yeah, gotta go to the presentation and share. And the next one is artifacts should have come up. There's four kinds of artifacts that are a problem shooting night shots. Satellites have gotten to be more and more of a problem. Rarely you can get a comet in there or a meteor, but airplanes and satellites are the main artifacts we're going to see. So I'll show you what those look like. A lot of people, because the satellites can easily be mistaken for a meteor. All right, I'm gonna click in. This thing here is the start of a airplane trail. If I go to the next picture, you can see we've got these airplanes, the little red and green lights are the giveaway. This is a satellite. This is a satellite streak. You get the reflections from a satellite, especially near twilights. And the way you can tell it, if you shoot consecutive images, go to the next image, you can see the trail just moves a little bit. Takes several minutes for an airplane to get out of the picture. These satellites are moving very quickly. This is probably a 10-second exposure or so. But this is the airplane. And there's another airplane. You can get these. And here's the satellite trail kept on going. But here's another airplane trail. So the airplane was probably going this way. So we got the three lines, depending on how high they are. Depends on what kind of lines you're going to get on. So if you go to the next one, you'll still see that we still got the satellite coming through there. So that's how I know that those little thin lines are satellites. And SpaceX has launched, there's what they call the Starlink satellites. And there are just thousands of those in the sky. So if you're shooting at twilight, it's almost impossible not to get one of those in your shot. These are what meteors actually look like. If you can see here, they change color and they start thin and end up with a thin little thing. This is a composite of the meteors from the Perseid shower a couple of years ago. There's another meteor, and unbeknownst to us, this is the Andromeda galaxy that shows up in the image. So this was taken with a 14mm lens, but it actually shows the Andromeda galaxy up there. So this is what meteors look like. They're going to have a little color to them, whereas the satellites don't have any color to them. So this is the meteors that we got all night. This was taken at Red Rock Canyon, so you can see the nice red rocks. go back to the presentation. So those are the main ones you're going to run across are satellites and airplanes. Airplanes are really a problem early in the evening. If you're shooting just before dawn, airplanes are probably not as much of a problem. But most up at the bristlecones and Alabama, mostly the bristlecones, the airplanes are going from the east or go to San Francisco, are flying right across there, and they fly right across the same path all the time. So it's hard to find an image that won't have multiple airplanes going across it. There are ways to take them out. For comets are so rare, you would know when you're going to get one of those. Meteors, I mean, you occasionally get a meteor, but it's more likely to be a satellite flash. Post-processing, I'll talk a little bit about that. It's recommended for Milky Way shots to absolutely shoot in RAW. One of the reasons is the cameras don't do a very good job of getting the white balance right, at least not what you want. It's really up to personal choice. But you can adjust the white balance. If you raise and lower the temperature, you can shift it between blue and yellow. So you can decide how blue you want your sky or how yellow you want your sky. Then you use the tint to adjust the green magenta balance. So if it's too green, you can put more magenta in it. And if it's too magenta, you can take some out, shift it toward the green a little bit. But it's important to do that with RAW rather than trying to do it with JPEG. Then you can use Photoshop to add contrast to the Milky Way. Most of the shots that I've shown you have had some contrast enhancement to the galactic center. And you find that the camera picks up a lot more light than your eyes can see. You'll never see the Milky Way in all its glory quite the way you can when you capture it with the camera. So it always looks better with the camera, at least in my opinion. So that's all. I think that's the end that I've got. Yes. So I'll stop the sharing. And if there are any questions, we'll try to answer those.
Yes,
What
go
do you
ahead
use
and ask questions.
What do you use for noise reduction?
Lately, I've been using, well, the best way to do it to get rid of noise is to shoot with a composite or a light so that you don't have to pull the shadows up so much. Otherwise, I try to use Topaz denoise. That's the best one I've found so far. Actually, I have not been too disappointed with the noise in the sky. I think it's been pretty good just the way it's shot. The sky is bright enough, the stars are bright enough that I don't really get a terrible lot of noise. It's mainly shooting a composite that gets you rid of the noise, or using a light source for the foreground object. Other questions?
I got a question for you, David. I've tried to, like at Alabama Hills, use a flashlight to paint like the Mobius arch, and it always seems like it's way too harsh. And I try and just do it briefly and kind of sweep it across. And oddly enough, like a car that was in the distance, the headlights work perfect, but of course you have no control over that. But I'm just wondering, what kind of lighting would you recommend, or what kind of technique would you use to try and not get such a harsh result?
I'll show you just a second. This is what I mostly use. It's a light panel with a orange CTO gel on it. So it's adjusted for the color temperature of about 3,200 degrees. So it'll work great for the night shot. So sky temperature is probably going to not be too far off that. This little panel, it's got an adjustable variable output, so I can adjust the brightness depending on how close you are to the object. When you're shooting at ISO 12,800 or so, or even 6,400, very dim light is actually bright enough for 10 seconds.
So that's something I could get off Amazon, a light.
Yeah,
camera?
that's Amazon or somewhere like that.
Okay.
I have used flashlights, and like you say, it's really hard to not get hot spot and get uniform coverage.
Right.
Sometimes you have to blend several images to get that uniform look. I mean, that's the other way of dealing with it, is you take lots of images.
You ever
Kathy,
see a
what kind of
UFO when you're out there at night?
They have what?
Have you ever seen a UFO in the skies?
No. I've never seen a UFO during night. We have seen military jets come over very low when you're in the Alabama hills or Death Valley, especially Death Valley. They really like to fly low and fast there.
Is there any place locally, either far west or far east, where you can pick up the Milky Way, or do you really have to drive to get to it?
I think the closest spot to us is Red Rock Canyon that's acceptable. I've tried driving to the west in Lancaster, and the prison has just got so much light that it really is difficult, and LA. So I found that Red Rock Canyon is really the closest one that we've got to us.
Have you ever tried Mount Pinos? I know they like to do astro or photography up there sometimes. Or
The
at
problem with Mount Pinos, though, I've been up there several times. The problem is it's a parking lot surrounded by trees, so you really can't see the horizon.
Right.
Alabama hills are probably one of the better places to go because it's pretty dark up there, and there are a lot of interesting rock formations.
How dangerous is it to be walking around in the dark up there?
Not dark. It's not dangerous. You just have to have a flashlight. I mean,
Okay.
we went up there in whenever it was, May or whenever, and we did scout out where we wanted to go before it got dark. And then once it got dark, we went back where we parked and went out there with our flashlights and found where we wanted to go.
Well,
We didn't.
I wasn't sure how hazardous the paths were and stuff, but
It's pretty, well, where we went was pretty flat because we were kind of hiking through the desert to go to where the rocks were that we wanted.
I've never been, so I don't. I just see the arches and stuff.
And the Mobius Arch is a pretty clear path, even if you wanted to do it there. It's not a difficult path to stay on in the dark.
No, if you've been to Mobius Arch in the daylight a few times, you can follow it and you pay attention to where the path is. Things are different at dark, that's for sure. But if you pay attention to the past, and if really the Milky Way is only over the arch at certain times of the year, so I think those are mainly in the fall, so it's going to be visible. As soon as it gets dark, it's going to be visible. So you go out there and you wait for it to get dark. And then you just got to try to figure out how to get back to your car in the dark.
David,
The other thing you can do is take it if you've got a GPS and put a mark on your car, because Racetrack Valley is so dark that you cannot see your car when it gets time to return. We've been out there a couple of times, and without the GPS mark, you'd never find your car. Chris can tell you all about it.
David, we've shot the Alabama hills several times as part of our learning curve, and we're still learning. But one of the ways that works for me, especially when you want to shoot between 2 and 4 in the morning, is we stay at the Dow Villa and we get up and we walk out and we go out and shoot from 2 to 4, and then we come back and we go put the do not disturb sign, sleep until 9 and go out to practice to drive home. And that works. That's a pleasanter experience than sleeping in your car. But
I'm sure.
I'm gonna mute.
And the Trona Pinnacles aren't that far either. And they are also, you know, you can stay pretty close to the parking lot and get some pretty good foreground if you don't want to go out on all of the little side trails that there are with your car. You can stay pretty close to the parking lot and have some pretty good pinnacles to have you as your foreground.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
What would you suggest is the best setting for night photography in general, in any lighting?
Well, if you're shooting in the town or something, the autofocus will work. So what I found is that if you've got auto ISO on your camera, that is the way to deal with it. Just use auto ISO, so it'll take care of the exposures for you.
Yeah, it depends on the effect that you're really wanting to get, what you're taking the picture of at night. If it's, you know, if you want to get like the long taillights of cars, well, obviously you're going to have a long exposure.
And if
With
you're going to
the
use a
ISO.
long exposure, you pretty much have to use a tripod. You cannot
Right.
hand hold it. If you're talking about walking around in night photography and hand holding, then auto ISO is the way to go. If you want to find a position and take a longer exposure, you have to use a tripod.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Any other? Let me look in the chat.
I was going to say that I've used the trick of finding my car in a large parking lot at night by just locking and unlocking the doors. The lights flashed.
Yeah. When we went to Alabama Hills, we went, Tom Llewellyn was with us. He's a newer member, and he had these really nice light panels that I'm trying to find where. Okay, let me look.
Is that like a loom cube or something you were using?
It
or-
was, it's sort of like, it's sort of Loom Cube-ish, but it was like a generic version, so it was a lot cheaper.
Yeah,
Let me
Yeah,
see
this
in a
particular
second.
panel uses 6 AA battery, or AA batteries. So
do the batteries usually last you the whole night, or?
it depends on how far up you turn them. They generally lasted me the whole night.
So were you setting that light in one position, or were you kind of waving it around like a flashlight, or what was your technique?
Mostly I would put it on a light stand and with like a barn door to keep it off the ground, keep the light off the ground, made of barn doors out of cardboard, and just turn it on and leave it on like at the grandstand at the Racetrack Valley. You want, because we're pretty far away from that. So you want the light to spread out as much as possible. So that wound up having to be on full bore while we did the shoot. And we're so far away from the car, you cannot see the car. Even if you shine a flashlight, you can't get a glimmer of a reflection. You're probably half a mile from the car to get out to the grandstand.
I don't know about you, but I get kind of scared when out in the middle of the night and you don't know where anything's at. It's kind of a creepy feeling. There was rattlesnakes at the Pinnacles the last time I was there, or the only time I've been there. Came across 2 rattlesnakes walking around just within a few feet of me.
The last time we were there, the partial moon came up and that really illuminated everything. That's when we got that one shot of the Milky Way plus illuminated, the pinnacles illuminated by the moon. So it really wasn't too bad. Some of the spots in Death Valley aren't, I mean, I have wandered around the dark trying to find my way back a couple times. So I was up at Eureka Dunes and I did it this year. It took a little while to find the campsite after finding the spot to shoot and then trying to get back.
Okay, so I'm gonna put in the chat room, the link to the one that I got. It's called Aperture Amaran Mini on-camera video light.
It looked
And you
kind of
can-
similar to what David had, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's very similar to that. It's only like maybe 2.5 by 3.5 to 4 inches. It's pretty tiny, but you can change it to any color that you want. You know, purple, red, green, but you would want it a little more towards warm for Milky Way. And then you can set it to like 1%, which is about what you would want as far as how light it is. It can go from 1 to 100%. And you do it through an app on your phone. So it's Bluetooth from your phone.
And you could probably put a CTO gel on top of it to make it compatible with a night shot.
Well, you can change the color on it itself. So you can make it warmer. You can set it to whatever Kelvin you want. So it's really useful. You know, when we were out there shooting at Alabama Hills, I was like, can you make it a little warmer? Because it still wasn't quite warm enough to offset, like if I made the sky bluer, I still wanted the rocks to be somewhat warm. And so by doing that, and you can just do that on your phone, you can change the color. And here right now it's only $90 on Amazon. So that's a pretty good price.
Sounds like a good Christmas gift idea, Kathy. I can tell my wife.
Yes.
Are you
And I just-
suggesting a white elephant gift, Tom?
No, $10 white
Yeah.
elephant gifts, not 90. And you can get a little tripod to stick it on, and then you can, you know, it has more stability when you're out there in the middle of nowhere, like a little gorilla pod or something. But yeah, and it works really well. We used it when we went out to do the light painting out at the preserve on the west side. The ones with the purple underneath and the red, that was using that light.
The link I posted is for our Lume Cube panel, and it's $59 on Amazon, and you can adjust the colors. It's all just right on the side of it without having to use a phone app or anything.
Ooh, nice.
Well, there you go. You have your choice. So grab those before we stop and get the, you know, all the info. And yes, if you use Amazon, do Amazon Smile, and you can put LPA as the beneficiary, just so you know. If you don't have a different charity that you support. Because we're a nonprofit, we can benefit from your purchases on Amazon.
Oh,
Make sure you put it smile.amazon and it'll take you there, and then you can register your charity.
Yes. So you can just add both of them to your list, and then you'll have those.
I just put both of them in my cart so I won't lose them.
There you go.
I'll watch, I'll go to buy something else and forget I put them in there.
Yeah. Oops. An extra $90.
That would be bad. I have a $3,000 lens in my cart right now.
Oh,
Ooh,
not good. Yes.
which one?
Give you my address.
Yeah. Not for that. But anyways, so there's some good different ideas of ways of lighting. And also I would suggest don't light directly from the front. try and do more side light because the light and shadow creates a nicer overall look than straight from the front. That's why when a car comes along and illuminates the rocks, you're like, ooh, that looks so much better than my flashlight, because you're right. You're illuminating from the front and the cars are illuminating from a different angle, and it has a nicer effect.
You can claim credit for doing magic.
Well, when a car lights your stuff?
The one I got when we went out there, I happened to have the car come through and everybody, oh my God, how did you do that? And I tried to play it off, and no, I got lucky.
Yeah. The ones that we took of the comet at Red Rock, the Red Rock Cliffs, the ones where the lights were coming by on the road,
Oh yeah.
had the nicest lighting of the rocks. When we were trying to light paint them, it did not look nice at all.
Somebody asked about how long the batteries last. This one shows the battery life based on the percentage. And when it's set on 1%, it's showing I have 13 hours of battery life. But if I go to 100%, it's only 1.2 hours of battery life. So it's, but it's nice that it shows you how much time you have on your battery.
Good. Okay. Any more questions? Now's the time.
Wonderful show, David. Thank you.
Great
Yes,
stuff, David. I took a ton of notes.
Lots of good information.
Yes, same here.
I can't wait for
Love
March.
the photos. Beautiful.
And Dara asked specifically, so I'm going to try and get this up on the website on our YouTube channel tomorrow so that people can review that. If you're interested, I will make a point to get it up there. It's just making my computer do it. So that will happen tomorrow. Okay. Thank you so much, Dave. That was great.
Thank you for putting up with it. Chris says I'm a lousy teacher.
Oh, brother. She's your wife. She has to say that.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay. So don't
Bye-bye.
forget to sign up for the Home on the Home, whatever it is. Holiday is on the homestead. And then for the holiday party, once I get that up on the website, I'll let you guys know in an email, and you can go and sign up for what you want to bring as a food item. We will need some main dishes. Usually it's like a ham or a turkey, so we only need 1 or 2 of those. And then side dishes and desserts seem to be much more popular to bring. And then we'll need volunteers to help with the setup. So we'll let you know. Yes.
At the homestead, when we've shot out there in the dark sometimes, there's a barn in the back. Don't miss that, because
The
at
barn,
sunset
yeah.
out at the Indian Museum, there's a barn at the back, which would be a nice, at sunset would probably make, some of you will make lovely pictures out there. Mine weren't terrific, but I know there's a picture there, so somebody needs to find it.
Okay, great. Yeah, 5 o'clock is right about when the sunset would be. So getting there slightly early might not be a bad choice. Okay. We'll see you all when we see you. Don't forget, in January, our competition is photojournalism. So be thinking about that when you're out and about and you see something happening. Take a picture. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close out the meeting. Thank you all for being here.
Hey, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take
Amazing.
advantage of all the information.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good night.